Welcome to The Explainer. I am so thrilled you're here today because we are unpacking some truly mind bending source material. We're diving deep into the spiritual revelations of Edgar Cayce, one of the most famous figures of the 20th century. This explainer is going to take us on a really fascinating journey into the true history of the human soul. Basically, we're exploring how these curated texts attempt to answer some of life's biggest, most persistent mysteries. Things like human suffering, life's inequalities, and what actually happens behind the veil of our everyday consciousness. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this. Have you ever looked around the world and just wondered, why do terrible, unexplainable misfortunes strike seemingly good people? I mean, why do some folks face sudden illness or intense hardship despite doing absolutely nothing to deserve it, while others just seem to, sail through life completely effortlessly? It's a universal, deeply human question. And it's exactly the mystery that the source text we're analyzing today tries to solve, all through the extraordinary life and work of Edgar Cayce. To understand the answer, we first have to understand the man. So let's move to section 1, the sleeping prophet's miracles. The text frames Cayce as one of the greatest psychics of 20th century America. Honestly, his abilities were so profound that he's often compared to Nostradamus. And this brilliantly illustrates the sheer volume and depth of Cayce's spiritual readings. We're going to unpack the contents of this specific source text to understand how a regular guy, living in America roughly a century ago, managed to leave behind a legacy of literally thousands of documented miracles and philosophical insights that people are still studying today. Now, the absolute cornerstone of Cayce's work is something called a reading. The text explains that while Cayce was awake, he had, absolutely no special medical or historical knowledge. He was just an ordinary man. But once he lay down and entered a self-induced hypnotic trance, something incredible happened. His conscious mind basically stepped aside, and a massive wealth of philosophical, medical, and historical information just flowed right out of him, completely bypassing his waking consciousness. According to our source material, these trances produced 3 main pillars of miracles. First up, he provided highly specific medical treatments for seemingly incurable illnesses. And the crazy part? When patients followed his advice, they were healed. Second, he made future predictions, looking ahead at the destinies of individuals, nations, the whole shebang. But the third pillar, that's what the text focuses on the most: past life readings. This is where Cayce didn't just look forward, he looked backward. He uncovered the vast, hidden history of the human soul to help people solve their very real, present-day problems. So how exactly did he pull this off? Let's unlock the mechanics in section 2, unlocking the soul's subconscious. The text actually gives us a fascinating mechanical explanation for how Cayce accessed all this hidden information while literally just unconscious on a couch. The source uses this brilliant, modern metaphor. It states that the mind contains a literal tape recorder, and on this internal tape, absolutely everything you have ever thought and everything you've ever done is permanently stored. And the text is super clear about this. This recording doesn't just start the day you are born in this lifetime. No, this tape has been running continuously across a vast history of past lives. The text explains it kind of like this. Our normal waking consciousness is like looking through binoculars with foggy lenses, or maybe wearing swimming goggles filled with water. You just can't see clearly. But hypnosis allowed Cayce to wipe the fog right off the glass. By putting his physical body to sleep, he allowed high-level spiritual guides to take over. These spirits could then look clearly at a patient's internal tape recorder, hit rewind, and read their soul's history to figure out exactly why they were suffering in the present day. And this ability to read those subconscious tapes leads us straight into section 3, the law of reincarnation. This idea of the continuous rebirth of the human soul is really the core philosophical concept that emerged from all of Cayce's work. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the profound social question the text poses. Think about the extremes of human existence, like the ancient caste systems, right? How can we explain why one person is born into vast wealth and royalty, while another is born into the most severe poverty? I mean, these circumstances require absolutely zero effort from the infant being born. If we only live once, how is that fair or even logical? Our source material contrasts these two worldviews impartially. If you look at existence through the lens of just a single lifetime, then hardships, illness, and your social standing at birth appear totally random, highly unfair, and frankly, unexplainable. But through the law of reincarnation, as revealed in Cayce's readings, a totally different logic appears. Current circumstances aren't random at all. They are the direct, inevitable consequences of actions taken by that exact soul across a vast, multi-century history of past lives. Which brings us to the mechanics of how this rebirth actually functions in Section 4, Karma, Seeds of the Past. How do the actions of a past life physically manifest today? So the crucial point is captured in this really simple proverb from the text. You must reap the seeds you have sown. The readings revealed that when folks came to Cayce with severe, unexplainable physical disabilities or catastrophic life failures, it was rarely a coincidence. The current misfortune was simply the harvesting of a karmic seed they had planted themselves, sometimes centuries ago, in a completely different body. Interestingly, the text notes that discovering this karmic law gave tremendous comfort to people. Really? Instead of feeling cursed by some random chaotic universe, they realized their unexplainable hardships were actually a form of atonement, like a balancing of the scales for a karmic debt. It totally reframed their suffering from meaningless torture into a necessary spiritual lesson for the soul's ultimate growth. And this completely changes how we view human health. The source text uses a beautiful analogy here. It says we should view human existence like riding a boat down a large river. Sometimes the water is smooth, but other times your boat gets caught in a whirlpool or runs aground in the shallows. The absolute key takeaway from Cayce's readings is that the soul itself never actually becomes sick. Your physical body, it's merely the temporary boat. And illness is just a mechanical malfunction of this temporary vessel as it navigates the river of eternity. This profound shift in perspective leads to the final, grand historical purpose behind Cayce's work. Let's look at Section 5, Supplementing Christian Doctrine. Now, here's an incredibly ironic and highlighted point in the text. Edgar Cayce himself was actually a very strict, devout Christian. While awake, he didn't believe in reincarnation at all. Actually, scratch that. He was initially shocked and deeply troubled when he woke up from his trances to find that his own mouth had been preaching the continuous rebirth of the soul and the law of karma. Let's move to and see how this builds into a much larger religious context. The source text neutrally outlines a perceived gap here. It notes that while traditional Christianity offers beautiful teachings, it lacks explicit, developed doctrines regarding reincarnation and the mechanics of karma over multiple lifetimes. So Cayce's overarching mission, directed by his guiding spirits, wasn't to destroy his faith, but to supplement it. He was chosen to integrate this missing true history of the soul into the Western religious consciousness. Ultimately, the text argues that Cayce's role was absolutely staggering in scope to initiate a modern religious reformation. Look, we live in a highly skeptical scientific age, right? We demand proof. By providing immense amounts of objective, verifiable data through his super accurate medical diagnoses and specific historical details, Cayce aimed to definitively prove the reality of the spiritual world to modern society. He was literally building an undeniable data set to show that the soul is real and it is eternal. And that brings us to the end of our explainer today. I want to leave you with a rather profound question based on this text. If the law of karma is real, and if your soul's history truly spans centuries, what is currently being recorded on your internal tape recorder right now? What seeds are you planting today that you might just have to harvest in a future lifetime? It's a fascinating concept from the source material that genuinely makes you reevaluate your everyday actions. Thank you so much for joining me on the explainer today, and keep exploring.